Hi there. Welcome to this episode of the Healthy Church Staff Podcast. My name is Todd Rhodes, one of the co-founders over at chemistrystaffing.com. Hope you had a great weekend and hope you're getting your week started on this Monday in a great way if you are in fact listening on a Monday. If not, hope you're having a great day, whatever day it is. Today we're going to be talking about how to minimize the gap between ineffective and fruitful ministry. And many of you who know me or may have followed me for the past decade, who am I fooling here, the last 20 or 30 years, know that I've been pretty passionate about the church, and I'm equally passionate about the people that have been called and have dedicated their lives to serving vocationally through the church. And when I started churchstaffing.com, man, that was way back in 2000, like 1999, I believe. The internet was a brand new way to help churches and individuals make a connection. And a lot has changed in the past almost 25 years, including the ways that churches and staff members connect. But something's been bothering me the past few years, and recent surveys have shown that the best, most fruitful years in ministry actually start after you've been at a church for 5 years. Now, that sounds reasonable. You get past the honeymoon period, you work through maybe some tough years, but by the 5-year mark, you've usually got enough change in your pocket to be able to have people's respect and trust and be able to make changes. You're able to cultivate relationships. And so 5 years makes sense to me. It has for quite a while. But at the same time, there's other surveys that say that church staff stay at their positions on average about 3.5 years. So there's a gap there between really needing probably about 5 years, not every time, but a lot of times 5 years to really start to be running on all cylinders in your church job. And yet a lot of pastors leave and church leaders leave 3.5 years in. So they never make it to that sweet spot. There's a huge gap between when a lot of people are moving on from their church and the time that when the really cool, extremely fruitful period of ministry begins. And the honest fact is that many people leave too early, and that bothers me. I hear all the horror stories of bad fit and unmet expectations and bait and switch. And when Matt and I started chemistry staffing back about 7 years ago, we just thought there has to be a better way. So we put our heads together, came up with what we thought at the time was a better solution. A way to connect churches and staff members that hopefully would be better and healthier and create long-term fits, which we at Chemistry Staffing describe a long-term fit as 5 years or more. We want to help a church and a candidate or a staff person get to that 5-year mark where they can really start to enjoy all the benefits that a long-term ministry has to offer. So when the right leaders, this goes back to what we thought when we started chemistry back these almost 7 years ago. Here's our premise is when the right leaders are at the right churches, unbelievable things can happen. Families can flourish, churches can thrive, lives are changed. What does this mean for you? I don't know where you are today. Maybe you're past that 5-year mark and you're experiencing some really fruitful ministry. Well, good for you. That's awesome. That's where we all strive and hope to be. Maybe you've never made it 5 years. Maybe you're 18 months in and you're already looking to move somewhere else or move on because it's just not a good fit. Maybe you're 3.5 years in. Maybe your last 3 churches you've never quite made it. You'd hope to, but for one reason or another, you've never quite made it to being there for that period of time where you can really experience great long-term ministry. How do you bridge this gap? At chemistry, what Matt and I have decided would be a first step in that is we do assessments on all of our candidates and all of our churches on the very front end. We think that assessments are really helpful for churches and candidates, but many times churches wait too long to do assessments. They fall in love with somebody, then they bring them on site, and then here, take this assessment. And at that point, it's too late because you already love the candidate. The candidate already loves you. And we've seen this happen a lot. You'll overlook things that come back on a really well-designed assessment. You'll just overlook it because you really like the person. So here's been our solution, and we've been doing this for about 7 years now, and it really, I think, does make a huge difference in helping us initially and the church and the candidate identify the potential for healthy long-term fit. And this, I promise, this is not a sales podcast. I'm not trying to get you to give me any business or anything, but I really feel strongly about this. And we talked about this a little bit last week on one of the episodes about the 4 things that there just absolutely has to be. And these are the things that we do the assessments on. There needs to be a theological fit. There needs to be a church culture and DNA fit. There needs to be a personality fit, and there needs to be skills and experience fit. All 4 of those have to be in place if you want to get to that healthy, long-term, 5+ year place. So here's how you can take advantage of this. And again, I'm not meaning this to be salesy at all, but if you're a candidate and you're looking at transitioning to a different church or a different role, go over to chemistrystaffing.com, submit your profile to us. It's absolutely free. The assessments are free. And what we'll try to do is we'll try and match you up with one of the churches that we're working with. We're currently working with about, I think, 65 churches, 65 searches that we're doing right now. We'll try and match you up with a church that meets your theological stance, that meets your church culture and DNA, that meets your personality, that has a likelihood of success when it comes to skills and abilities. So if you're a candidate, absolutely free charge, go over to chemistrystaffing.com, submit your profile. If you're a church and you'd like to have a little bit of help with your next hire, I would love to be able to have a conversation with you and work with you in the future if that makes sense. You can reach out to me at podcast@chemistrystaffing.com, and I'd love to have an initial call with you. But by assessing both candidates and churches for long-term health on the very front end of the search, we think both churches and candidates are starting to make more effective hires and find longer-term candidates and longer-term staff members for their kingdom work. And ultimately, as we said, if you as a church can find staff members that will be there in 5 years, that is a great asset for your church. If you are a candidate or you're in transition and you're looking for a church, you really want to find some place where you can settle in with some roots and really find a place that you can serve for long term. So if there's any way that we can help, any questions that you have, you can always reach out to me at podcast@chemistrystaffing, podcast@chemistrystaffing.com. Hope you'll join us again here tomorrow. Tomorrow we're going to be talking about church leaders who shade the truth. This will be interesting. Join us here again tomorrow on the Healthy Church Staff Podcast.